everyone's out there waiting. We're just kind of getting everything set up, and we'll be starting momentarily. So get comfortable, get yourselves a drink, and we'll be starting soon.
It's very nice to meet you.
Yes, likewise.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. You know who we are. We now know who you are, so introducing ourselves is a check. This book launch is being live streamed on Twitch. Okay, so mind your manners, guys.
Oops.
And
Only your dirtiest jokes.
and at a certain point, we're going to bring in a special guest, another Brain Lag author. So, everyone gets a draw ticket just for being here, just for walking through the door. Did you get one? Okay, Chris, would you please take care of that? And anyone who bought a book gets an additional draw chance, and if you bought 2 books, you get 3 additional draw chances. So we'll take care of that right now. So, Catherine, what shall we talk about first?
Well, I think our audience here may be familiar with the book, but perhaps not everyone on Twitch. So how about we start with talking about Remains to be Seen?
Okay. The birth of a novel. This actually goes back years. A lot of my books go back years because I went through a lot of years as a teacher, being able to write only during summers. And you can't write a whole novel in 6 or 7 weeks. So it would end up, the partial manuscript would end up in my filing cabinet drawer. I would forget that it was there. I started a new one the following summer. And by the time I retired from teaching, I had a filing cabinet full of stories that I had begun to write but not finished. Okay. Flash forward to 2015. Now I'm retired and I'm writing full-time. I get invited to join the Ed Greenwood group. Now, Ed Greenwood was and is a giant in the field of role-playing games. He is an honored guest at just about every gaming convention. He is in high demand to develop worlds. He's a master world builder. And he decided that he was going to create some worlds and then invite other authors to come and play in his sandbox, so to speak. And I was one of those authors who was privileged to be invited in. Two of his settings intrigued me, and I actually wrote a short novel for one of them, Hellmaw, which was about alien vampires coming to Earth. And the other one, I developed a novel for. I planned it out, just outlined it. And that was for Winter Night Towers, which was about ghost stories. And the novel that I outlined for Winter Night Towers was about a museum curator who happens to be a ghost whisperer who comes to a small town and discovers that the museum that he's about to manage is haunted because of a disaster that happened just outside the door. And the not the survivors, but those who perished in the disaster have been haunting the museum ever since. And some of them become his friends. And I had him fall in love with the town librarian, and then the two of them joined forces to defeat a greedy land developer. That was the original plot line. So flash forward again to 2020. The experiment, unfortunately, had to fold before either of my books saw the light of day. So they're in my filing cabinet. It's a perfect time. The lockdown is a perfect time to develop and complete all those stories that I've been cramming into my filing cabinet. So, Billy and Angie on the Run, which was the Hellmaw novel, became The Earthborn, which Catherine published in 2023. And the Winter Night Towers story became Remains to be Seen. But what happened was, I had also written, or rather started to write, a romantic suspense novel, because for some period of time I was doing contract editorial work for Harlequin Books. And one of the editors took me aside and said, you should be writing your own novels. And so I did. I wrote one for them, and I thought, hey, this is fun. I'm going to write another one. Well, the second one that I wrote was about a firefighter who fell in love with a travel agent at a literary convention. That got about 2 chapters plus an outline. That was all that I wrote in that one. I found that one before I did this one. I found Weekends Can Be Murder. And I wrote that story, but I threw in a paranormal element because I wanted to submit it to Catherine, and I thought, this has to be speculative in some way. So I threw in a sentient summer cottage. Now I've got I forget what I called it, with the Winter Night Towers story. At the time, I gave it a name, but I forget what it was. And I reread it, said, I know what this book needs. It needs a firefighter and a travel agent. So I made it the sequel to Weekends Can Be Murder. And that's where this book came from. And there are still books in my filing cabinet. I've got a lot of work ahead of me.
While you're still working on sequels to some of these ones as well.
Yes. The Earthborn, which was originally it was a mashup of Romeo and Juliet and Bonnie and Clyde, but with alien vampires and a dog.
Just normal stuff.
And that one became a sequel because, well, it had to. And that was the Bloodstone. And there are going to be at least one or two more books coming in that series. So I tried to write short stories, but they all turned into novels, and now I try to write novels and they all turn into series.
That said, one of the books on the table is also a collection of short stories, which are all excellent in their own right as well.
Yeah, and probably will end up being novels at some point. Don't put it past me. Okay. So the timeline here, now I made some conscious artistic choices, and I decided that this world is a fictional world. It looks like the real world. It's set in a place that residents of Collingwood are going to recognize. But there's been no COVID outbreak here. COVID never happened. And climate change is not at the front of everyone's mind. Okay.
So we do have a question from the chat. Will a future book feature an alien vampire dog travel agent who fights fires on the side?
Oh, wait, I gotta write that down. Once I run out of the manuscripts, the partials in my filing cabinet, I just may tackle something like that. We
Just
shall see.
more and more, stack more and more onto it.
So, Weekends Can Be Murder takes place in August. Remains to Be Seen takes place the following June and July. And I'm working on a third book titled The Spirit of the Law, which will take place that same year in October. So it's all happening within about a year and a bit. And I've introduced the librarian, Sarah Trainer, and the museum manager, Kurt Wakefield. And of course there's Larry Holmes, the firefighter, and Selena Watt, the travel agent, and a Provincial Police Services detective, Sergeant Brassard, who considers them all to be pains in the butt, but you know, they have their uses. And what I've come to realize is I've created a Scooby gang. We've got the jock, there's the firefighter, we've got the nerd, that's the librarian, we've got the cheerleader, there's the travel agent, and the stoner is the museum manager who speaks to ghosts. So we've been calling them the Scooby Gang now. I even got a review via email from a reader that called them the Scooby Gang. This book is the first one that takes place actually in the town of Groverton. Groverton is my Mariposa. Stephen Leacock wrote about Aurelia and he called it Mariposa, and I write about Collingwood and call it Groverton. But there are differences. It's a fictionalized version of Collingwood. And in order to create a fictionalized version of Collingwood, I had to research the real Collingwood so that I would know what it was I was fictionalizing. And I found out some really cool stuff. Now, the museum in Groverton is housed in the same building that was previously the railroad station. In Collingwood, our museum is a replica of that station. Okay? Accurate in every detail, but of structure. But it's not the actual one. The actual railway station in Collingwood was built on St. Paul Street. But before that, there was a wooden building that they built when the railway first came through in 1855, the railway established Collingwood as a northern terminus, and the harbor became a shipping port. And 3 years later, the town incorporated, officially calling itself, Collingwood. Before that, it had been named Hen and Chickens Harbor. Because there are 5 islands just offshore, 1 big one and 4 little ones.
So
and so they named it Hen and Chickens Harbor. In 1873, the railway station, which had by now attracted a hotel and a restaurant, all on the same street, all made of wood. They all burned down in a fire in 1873. The station was replaced by a very elegant brick station on St. Paul Street. And it no longer is there, but you can see what it looked like by looking at the museum here on Hume. Okay. So I'm going to do the first reading now. Selena is the travel agent, and she is moving her business to Collingwood, Groverton rather. The little town that she's currently in is never going to be more than a little town, and Groverton is growing. So she wants to move her business to some place where it's going to thrive. And she's been scouting out properties, finds a house that she wants to make an offer on. And it's a century-old building, nicknamed the Castle. Just imagine what it looks like if it was nicknamed the Castle. Then the real estate agent is found dead on the front porch of that same house. And now it's a crime scene. And the yellow tape goes up and nobody can go inside. And of course her offer to purchase is stalled. And the Scooby Gang decides they're going to solve the mystery so that she can get back into her house and make the offer. They're going to help her out. Staff Sergeant Brassard warns them all not to interfere, not to get involved, but of course, these are sleuths. And Selena does something that gets her picked up and brought to the detachment for an interview with Staff Sergeant Brassard. Now, Staff Sergeant Brassard is francophone, and I'm going to attempt to reproduce her cadence. We'll see how well I do here. Selena surveyed the room, not sure whether to feel relieved or disappointed that it reminded her of someone's front parlor. There was the requisite two-way mirror, of course, but also a well-upholstered love seat and 2 matching armchairs and a conversation grouping, with a low coffee table and a couple of wood-veneered end tables strategically placed among them. It didn't take a genius to realize where the interviewee was supposed to sit. Selina had barely settled herself on the love seat before the door opened again to admit Staff Sergeant Isabelle Brassard, holding a blood-red file folder in her left hand. Tall, sturdy, and stern-faced, the PPS officer had been an imposing sight on the boat dock of Rafferty Island. In this little room, dressed in full uniform, she appeared even more formidable. "Miss Watt," she declared from just inside the doorway. Then, speaking with the francophone cadence that Selina remembered so well, added, "Do you know why I called you here?" Mentally crossing her fingers, Selina said, "Because you got my message and want to discuss the house?" "No." Brassard eased herself onto one of the armchairs, her lips set in a grim smile. "It is because of a discrepancy that we need to clear up. This morning you gave a statement to one of my detectives in which you claimed to have met the victim, Brenda Ryan, for the first time 2 days ago, when you happened to walk into the real estate office to inquire about buying a house." "It wasn't a claim," Selina replied, her dander rising. "It was the truth." "So you are confirming that you had no relationship with Miss Ryan before that moment?" "None. Our paths had never crossed, and I didn't even know she existed." "Ah. Then if you were total strangers to each other, how do you explain this?" Brassard placed a page on the coffee table, turned so that Selina could read it. It was the printout of a screenshot showing the post she'd put up on social media less than an hour before Iskari had come to fetch her at the realtor's office. Damn. "You see my confusion now?" Brassard was saying. "If she was a stranger, she could not possibly be a dear friend you are worried for. These two things contradict each other. Therefore, one of them must be a lie. Which one is it, Miss Watt?" "I did not lie to the detective." "Ben, that is fortunate for you. But now I have to ask, what exactly was the purpose of this post?" Wait a minute." Selina straightened in her seat, struck by a sudden thought. "You've been monitoring my social media activity?" "Of course not. We have been searching the internet for anything by or about Ms. Ryan that might tell us how she spent her final hours. Imagine my surprise to discover her name linked with yours in this way. Or perhaps I should not be surprised to find you disregarding my warnings about interfering with our investigation." "I was only trying to learn something that would convince you to take us seriously." "Well, you have succeeded, although I imagine it is not what you were hoping for. This is not one of your murder mystery novels, Ms. Watt, with their clever, insightful amateurs and bumbling police detectives. My people are professionals who know what they are doing, and especially what not to do in order to catch criminals. There is a reason that we do not shout our questions out to the whole world. We are hunting a killer, and it is very important when hunting not to reveal oneself too early to the prey. It gives them a chance to escape, or in a case such as this, to cover up their tracks by harming even more people." With these final words, Brassard's piercing dark eyes focused like targeting lasers on Selina's face. She swallowed hard. "Oh, I never thought about that." "I know. It is because you are an amateur. I have no desire to charge you." "Then don't, but please hear me out. If you are going to tell me the crime scene is cursed, you can save your breath. The first thing we learned about that house is that half the town believes it is haunted. And I know a way to determine or disprove that if you'll let us." Pursing her lips, Brassard leaned back in her chair. "Go on," she said with a sigh and a skeptical tilt to her eyebrow. "You know what happened at Rafferty House. Your own people experienced it, even if you personally didn't, even if no mention of it was included in your official reports, even if there's no scientific way to prove that it's true. Every human who spent the weekend in that house knows that it was sentient." Are you suggesting that this house you are so eager to buy is also sentient? Yes. The one time that I was inside it, it reached out and communicated an emotion to me. And there's a high probability that it also witnessed the crime that you're investigating and can give you a statement about it. That can be said about every crime scene, can it not? Our analysts are still gathering and processing evidence from this house. It has already told us a great deal about the death of Brenda Ryan. And it can tell you even more if you'll let us back inside. Rafferty House spoke through Larry. I believe the old McFadyen house is trying to speak through me. Please, give us a chance to help. Now I'm going to stop there. So how do I do as a francophone?
Do we have to do the accent?
That,
I think we're gonna have to, because we've got it.
You're going to hear the accent
In our
now.
heads.
yes.
Yes.
Gonna need to come up with your ideal movie cast list, so we can all get an idea of what everyone sounds like.
Well, I must admit, there were pictures that were in my mind of possible actors to play these various roles. All Canadian.
Of course.
Of course.
Who else? If anyone has any questions, feel free at any time.
Okay, well, shall we do the first draw then?
Sounds good.
Okay, the first draw is for the ornamental candle. Chris, would you show it to everybody, please? Guaranteed to light up the darkness and keep the ghoulies away.
And with this size, it will burn for 17 days.
Indeed.
And will it scare away ghosts at the same time?
The unfriendly ones.
Oh, only the friendly ones?
No, the unfriendly
Friendly ones, oh, thank you.
And by the way, for those who have come in, there's snacks and water over there. Please help yourselves. We don't want to take it home, so please eat.
Yes. Have a snack, have more.
I turned the camera so now I can sneak over here.
So the winner of the candle is ticket 1, which I think is Beth.
It is.
Congratulations.
I won a candle. Go claim your prize.
Yeah. I have to hand in my ticket.
I gotta make sure that matches.
Make sure you can't sneak it back in for the next prize.
It looks robotic.
It has been
Doesn't it
thoroughly
look
destroyed.
robotic?
There's a Chalmers over here. Yeah, the problem with Danishes is when you cut them, they fall apart.
Yeah.
Maybe they still taste as good.
Each time you buy a book from the stand over here, when they're available, you get extra draws, extra tickets for the draws.
I want a remains to be seen.
That's not a raffle prize, you gotta buy it.
No, I know. I want a remains to be seen. I need to buy that.
So are there any questions? Does anyone wanna know more about anything about the books?
So
Does- yeah.
as the story progresses, is there a lot of the history of Collingwood that comes out in the book?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. I
Gloverton.
actually lifted out some paragraphs that do that
Oh, okay.
later on in the manuscript. And now I changed the date when the rail line came through Collingwood.
Okay.
It came through Groverton in 1858 instead of 1855. So here's what I wrote about the railway. Groverton had already established itself as a trading port with the potential potential to be much more when it was added as a terminus to the railway line in 1858, necessitating the construction of a train station. Seeing an opportunity to attract even more wealth and commerce to the area, the governing council decided to make this the first all-brick building in town. It was designed to be enduring and impressive, a harbinger of future prosperity. Its waiting area therefore needed to accommodate large crowds of people. Its freight handling facility had to be capacious. What was most important, it had to stand tall, to be visible from anywhere in the town and from points beyond it as well. And so a massive tower was put in the middle of the structure, rising fully 3 stories high, with an office and storage room on each of the first 2 floors for the station manager and his assistant, and a crow's nest lookout at the top. So I describe, when it's appropriate, I describe the points, the salient points about the town. Hello, welcome, come in. Okay, get your draw tickets from. Okay.
And we have some snacks and water on the table at the front there, so please help yourselves.
Okay.
And we also have a question from the chat,
Yes.
the Twitch chat from JD DeLucio, asking how do the slight changes to recent history affect the story? Wondering why were these slight changes made, or is this a spoiler? Regarding COVID not happening and...
Well, I tried to fit it in and it wouldn't fit. And there was already so much going on in this story that if I had them worrying about masking up or keeping their distance, that was just going to turn things into a muddle for the reader. So to simplify the narrative, I decided, okay, there was no COVID in this world that I've created.
Now, along those lines, a question that I had when I was reading the book is related to, you have specific things happening on specific days of the week. In particular, Canada Day is on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So does that mean this book takes place in 2025?
That's the way it worked out, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, without explicitly stating it, of course, but...
I never stated a year. I just said, that's when Canada Day took place.
I always find it interesting with books that take place in modern day, whatever that is for whenever people write it, how that's handled. I mean, especially for me as a fantasy and science fiction writer, normally I'm off in a completely different world. So it's always interesting to me, like, are these books just kind of generic modern day, or is it a specific point in time? And you've kind of taken both routes with some of your books.
I'm sneaky that way. Yeah, I wanted to give a sense of what it was like to live in a small town without going into great detail. And I needed to fictionalize that town sufficiently that it wouldn't interfere, that the actual history would not dictate what could happen when. Well, for example, this museum that Kurt has come to manage. The ghosts are there because of a derailment that happened as the train was pulling into the station. It demolished the boarding platform. And anyone who happened to be on the boarding platform died, and the people who were in the passenger car on the train also died. This was a horrible disaster. There are 2 kinds of ghosts in the station. There are those who do not realize they're dead, and they are like wisps. Kurt doesn't really interact with them at all. They don't see him. They're not even aware that the mortal plane exists. As far as they're concerned, they're waiting for the train. Then the ones who know what happened, and they've got unfinished business, they've got regrets, they've got, reasons to stick around. He sees them as opaque, three-dimensional, just like us, but not in color. He sees them in black and white. And when they're talking, their lips are moving, but he's hearing their voices inside his head. And as a result, he's able to make friends with them. He's able to help them. This is what he's been doing all his life. Some of these ghosts are tethered to material objects. Right? Others are tethered to the place. Like there are two women who sit on the platform on a bench watching the trains come and go, because they do that every afternoon. And this derailment took place in 1933, so I had to do research about what women were wearing in 1933. Spent a whole afternoon on hats. But I was able to dress them authentically, except he doesn't know what color anything is because everything is grayscale. There was no such derailment in Collingwood. That was totally fabricated. There was, however, a suspicious death that occurred on the platform. And it was more recent than 1933. But when I was there, the last time I was there, it was pointed out to me. There's actually a plaque beside the door of the museum entrance about this woman who died. But it was, I wanted to make people feel as if they were taking a little walking tour, a haunted walking tour, as one of the reviewers said, through a small Ontario town. So there's lots of real estate detail in there about what the houses look like, the fact that the Historical Society dictates what you can do with the exterior of your house, how everything has to be approved by them. There's even a particular color, a range of colors that you can use. You're not supposed to, paint your door yellow or anything like that.
Almost about as bad as an HOA. Now you mentioned the two types of ghosts at the station and how, they're hanging around because they have regrets, they have unfinished business, but there's also several in the story that don't have any of that. They just enjoy being around the train station so much, such as the two women on the platform.
Yeah, because one of them, her husband, comes home from work on that train, that afternoon train. He commutes to Toronto, and then he comes home on the train. And so she's waiting for him every afternoon, and her friend is waiting with her. And they spend the afternoon. They may be waiting for the train for like 3 hours. They just enjoy watching the trains come and go.
I mean, what else would two young married women in the 1930s be doing with their afternoons? But there's also at least two others that are just kind of hanging around the museum, just kind of continuing the tasks that they were doing, back when the derailment happened.
Yeah, there's Orville Mead. He's the ticket agent, and he is tethered to his cash register. This is an antique cash register that sits on the gift shop counter on display, and has his stool. They don't actually sit because ghosts are not subject to gravity, but they can bend their bodies to simulate sitting. And so he sits there because he's got a crush on the clerk who runs the gift shop, and he likes to watch her. And then there's Len Paxton, the porter, and he was in the process of transferring luggage on his trolley when the derailment happened. But that's his trolley. So he's more or less attached to that trolley. And they get together, they have discussions, they get together on the boarding platform, and they talk about Kurt, they talk with Kurt. One of the ladies, Clara, was a matchmaker, so she's more interested in his love life than anything else. So I've made them all really three-dimensional personalities, because to Kurt they are three-dimensional personalities. They are friends. When he's got a problem, he goes to the boarding platform and sits with Ruth and Clara, and he talks to them about it, and he gets their advice. And these ghosts, they have agency. They're not just memories. They actually think, and they can't do anything. They can't interact with material objects. But they can ask whether you've gotten enough sleep the last night or two. They can, scold you for doing or not doing something. And then, of course, there's Lillian, who does even more than that. Ghost Lillian, excuse me, Lillian was inspired by a relative of mine, and she was supposed to come to this book launch, and unfortunately she fell and broke her hip. She's 92 years old, bless her. She's my aunt, and she is currently in the hospital, recovering from surgery to repair her broken hip, so she's not able to make it, and that's a shame. Excuse me.
So we couldn't get the projector to work, but we have some pictures of Lillian.
Okay, so Lillian in this picture is about 15 years old, and she's holding me.
Oh.
And this is my Aunt Anne, this is Lillian, and that was taken about 15 years ago. This is the way I visualized Lillian and her cousin Trudy in the book. My Aunt Lil, I always knew, was strong-willed, creative, confident, and down-to-earth with a wicked sense of humor. She was the most fun of all my aunts. She's my mother's younger sister. She was born the same year as the train derailment in the novel, 1933. And the last time we were together, I had just begun writing Remains to be Seen, and I asked her if I could honor her by naming a character after her in my book. And she very graciously said, yes, she would be honored if I would do that. The more I wrote of the book, the stronger her character became, because that's just the way Lil is. Once she gets into your life, she gets a hold of you. And so I tried several times during the editorial process to send her a copy of the manuscript. And she said, nope, I don't want to read anything but the finished product. I want to hold a book in my hand. Well, since this is the first time I've been able to hold a book in my hands, she's going to have to wait. But I'm going to love to know what she thinks of the way I portrayed her. So, while the rest of the Scooby Gang follow various paths to the truth about Brenda Ryan's murder, Kurt has been mobilizing the ghosts in the museum. And as I read this, I want you to remember the image that you saw of Lillian on the screen. She was waiting for him in his office, lounging on his chair this time, but still wearing a sardonic expression on her face. He didn't even attempt to get her to move. "Where's Barbara?" he asked. "That's another ghost." Lillian waved a negligent hand. "Around here somewhere. She won't go far. None of us can, as you well know." Slowly pulling herself to seated attention, she gestured rather imperiously to him to take a guest chair. "I gather your visit to the police station was less successful than you'd hoped it would be." Now he was being called on the carpet by a ghost. Kurt felt a return of the heat to his cheeks. "So, what's the next step in your plan, Mr. Wakefield? I'm assuming there is one, a plan, I mean, not a step." Ignoring the disdain evident in her tone, he told her, "Actually there is, and it requires your assistance if I'm to pull it off." "Oh?" "I've met another ghost named Rachel. She was a close friend of Brenda Ryan, the real estate agent whose body was recently found at the castle." "The one whose death is the reason the place is crawling with cops, and until they leave you can't take me back there? That Brenda Ryan?" she sniffed. "Right. Rachel knows more about Brenda than anyone else does. The problem is Rachel's ghost is tethered to a bracelet that she gave her mother, and Mom never takes it off." "Let me guess. Mom has no inkling the bracelet is haunted, and if you're to keep your secret safe, then that's the way she has to stay." "Correct. I can't talk to Rachel directly, but you can. If I bring her mother here for a meeting, will you walk Rachel out of the office and have a chat with her?" "To find out what, Mr. Wakefield?" "Whatever information you can glean about Brenda Ryan. At the very least, it could help us dig up a fresh piece of evidence to present to Brassard. That would convince her to let us enter the castle and look for Brenda's spirit. If she was killed in or around the house, it's where her ghost is most likely to be." "You sound quite certain of that. Have you checked to make sure it's not tethered to her body?" When he didn't respond right away, she demanded, "Do you even know where her body is?" Reluctantly, he replied, "It will be in the morgue being autopsied and then waiting to be claimed by a relative, along with about a dozen other bodies. And a dozen other angry, fearful ghosts," he added silently. Kurt had learned at a young age to avoid places where murdered bodies lay together. Even now, just thinking about the educational trip his mother had taken him on to visit Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen was enough to send a violent shudder through his entire body. Lillian inhaled sharply. "You're afraid to go there, aren't you?" she said wonderingly. "A ghost whisperer who's afraid to be around the dead. How strange. And interesting." He batted away her remark. "It's complicated. Listen, I'll visit the morgue later. For now, let's just stick to the plan. I'll phone Tricia and tell her I'm tired of renting and want to buy a house in town. Then I'll set up a meeting with her here in my office. When she arrives, you sidetrack Rachel for some ghost-to-ghost conversation, and please be discreet with your questions. If she realizes you're pumping her for information, she'll get angry, and then the temperature will drop and it'll be game over. Fine. You're the boss, she declared. I'll handle her with kid gloves. He was the boss? Right. Kurt didn't believe that for 1 second. When ghosts get angry or upset, the temperature in the air drops. And that's how you know.
Or, in Lillian's case, when she wants to make a point.
Yes. She's turned it into an art.
Another question from the Twitch stream chat here. Based on your research, does Collingwood have any noteworthy alleged ghosts, haunted sites, and such like?
Oh, yes. In fact, there's actually a haunted walking tour that is given, and I should have looked it up before I came, because there are ghosts, and I know for a fact, not for a fact, because I heard it from an Aurelia resident here. But in any town like Collingwood that's on Georgian Bay, with its unpredictable weather, its sudden storms, all of the ships that have been sunk in Georgian Bay, and there are going to be ghosts. And if relics are recovered from the bottom of the bay and they're brought and they're on display in the museum, the ghosts are going to be there as well. Are there any other questions, comments?
Would you like to explain why you're wearing that particular necklace today?
Oh, yes. Okay, I mentioned Barbara. Selena's cousin Barbara was the victim of a crime. 9 years before this book takes place, Barbara was on her way up the 400 to the family cottage. She never made it to the cottage. Her car was recovered by the side of the road, and her body was recovered sometime after that on a side road. And she was wearing a piece of jewelry that looked identical to this. In fact, I based her jewelry on mine. This is my favorite necklace because it's the only one I have that's made of pewter. And it's the yin-yang symbol. And when Selena went to claim her cousin's personal effects, she felt when she handled the pendant, she felt as if her cousin was there with her. And so she decided that she would keep that and give Barbara's parents everything else. So she's been wearing this pretty much constantly. And then on meeting Kurt, she discovers that Barbara's ghost has been tethered to this thing for the entire 9 years. And you can imagine the guilt that Selena has been feeling, will be feeling, because she's been dragging her cousin around like a dog on a leash for the last 9 years. But she's sensitive to the presence of ghosts, and so that's why she felt as if her cousin was nearby. So one of the subplots in this book is, what about the pendant? Who gets to keep the pendant? Where does Barbara go? Because Selena doesn't want to be wearing this anymore. It makes her feel very, it makes her feel cruel that she's dragging her cousin around with her all over the place. So the pendant ends up with Kurt. And Barbara is in the museum. Now, time operates differently with ghosts. So as far as Brenda's concerned, what happened to her happened like yesterday. So this is a traumatized ghost. And she gets therapy from the two old ladies on the boarding platform, and so it's a whole community of ghosts inside this museum, and they kind of take her under their wing, and they're looking after her. And Lillian forms a relationship with Barbara. That's part of the narrative. But by the end of the book, Barbara is dealing very well with her trauma. I'll put it that way. She's still got a ways to go, but she's not curled up in a ball between two walls anymore, you know?
You must have done a lot of research on ghosts, have you?
Well, I've always loved ghost stories.
Right? No, but I mean people who have, like experts in the field.
Oh,
Right? You know, those kind of books, like Angry Ghosts by, I don't remember who. There's a whole lot of this.
there's a compartment in my mind that just gathers up every bit of information that I come across about
Ghosts.
the afterlife and
Yes,
ghosts and
yeah.
things like that. And so that was where I went when I was researching for the book. But I also, when I was much younger, I was in my teens and early 20s, I would go on jags. I'm neurodivergent, I tend to hyper-focus on things. When something interests me, everything else goes away and I just focus on that one thing. And so my reading reflects that. So for a while, I was a Queen Elizabeth II jag, the House of Tudor. And I read everything I could find, fiction and nonfiction, about the reign of Elizabeth and Henry VIII. And then I went on a different jag, and I was interested in ESP, so I read everything that I could find about ESP. And then when that was over, I had a reading jag on the supernatural, on ghosts and poltergeists and things like that. I don't like horror movies. I can't tolerate too much suspense. And I especially do not like slasher, gory, teenagers at camp getting murdered one at a time kind of movies. But I like the idea that after death there is something. Now, while I was researching, I also researched some indigenous information, because one of the characters, one of the ladies who works at the museum, is a retired professor who happens to be Anishinaabe. And her name is Nenokazi, which means hummingbird. And while I was researching that, I decided I would look up, ghosts and afterlife and their religion and so on, and I learned that if a spirit is strong enough, it can choose to remain on the mortal plane after the body has died. That is their belief. So I was able to add a character, and this is Nenokazi's deceased grandfather, who was a medicine man, and he comes to her in dreams as an owl, and in one of her dreams he's given her a message for Kurt. So she delivers this message. Now, I ran the book past Mary Barnes, who is also Indigenous. And she was able to help me tweak that part of the story so that it was more in line with current thinking. But it you know, everything is about the afterlife, about ghosts and so on. It's really fascinating to me. And I would love to know if someone can actually prove that there is an afterlife.
Would be nice to know.
It would be
Mhm.
nice. It would make death a whole lot less scary, wouldn't it?
Depending on what that
Or the
afterlife
other way
is.
around.
We're all going to hell, I don't know.
Has anyone here had a ghostly experience? Been on a haunted walking tour or anything?
I've just met up with so many people in Aurelia who have had the ghost experiences, so. Yeah, town is full of it. Is there a real alive person in this story? No, I'm
Oh,
just
who cares
curious, I
about
mean,
that?
are they all ghosts?
Oh, yeah, lots of living people, but the thing
Oh,
is that,
okay,
Well, the Scooby Gang, they're all,
yeah, there's a Scooby Gang, and then there are,
Okay.
you know, there are other characters.
because as you're talking and telling us about these, a ghost, I think, was that a ghost or is this a real person? Which is a good thing, you know, the way you make them come to life. Oh,
and it is kind of funny because you've got a number of these, you know, very well-developed characters who are ghosts, but there's only one living person who can actually see and hear them. So there's some very entertaining results of that.
Some very distracted conversations that go on, as they're there passing comment on things while Kurt's trying to have a conversation with someone.
We have another question from the chat. This is from Robert Runty. I hope I pronounced that properly. You mentioned that you initially added a paranormal/ghost element to your cozy mystery so you could take it to Brainlag. Can you talk a bit about how you came to find Brainlag and what it was like working with them? For those who don't know, I am the owner of Brainlag, the publisher, editor, basically one-person show behind all of those books on the table, as well as about 50 others at this point.
good for you.
I was looking for a publisher. I wanted the publisher to be in Ontario because my story took place in, well, basically it was in the GTA. And it was the kind of story that I wanted the publisher to do justice for. And so I had certain criteria. I wanted it to be a Canadian publisher. I wanted it to be an Ontario publisher. And then I just kept my eyes peeled on Facebook for mentions of publishers' names and how happy other authors were with their publisher. And I looked at covers, book covers as well, because I wanted the book covers to be unique and interesting, and I was looking for someone with an artistic sense. And I kept hearing Brainlag. And I thought, okay, so I went to your website, and I saw the books that you had already published, and I read your mission statement, and I read the submissions page, and when it said books that are hard to sell, or what was it, the phrase, books that are difficult to classify and hard to sell.
And genre bending.
genre bending, that's it. Because I
When it-
am really big on mashing up genres. I write the story that demands to be written. And regardless of what genre it fits into, I leave that up to other people to decide. But I will write the story that demands to be written. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna give this a try. And so I submitted Adventures in Godhood to you.
Which is right there at the front of the table, and it's
Yes.
so that one is basically 12th dimensional being decides to have fun with humanity, particularly a few people around Toronto, through a few different periods of time.
Yes. It was genre bending, it was time travel, but not really time travel, it was more like the reader was traveling through time. And this 12th dimensional being saw time as a continuum that they could just drop into anywhere they liked. And in the ancient past, what this being had done was rescued a prostitute from being stoned by a bunch of men, and accidentally became the patron god of concubines and prostitutes. And so that, the original title was The Accidental God. But it was a short novel. It was only about 53,000 words originally, and I decided, okay, I'm going to. This was one of the ones that I worked on during the lockdown, as a matter of fact. And I expanded it. I revised it. I expanded it. I deepened it. I deepened the characters. I gave it themes. It became a darker book. It wasn't as funny as the original one,
But it's still pretty
but
funny.
it was more meaningful and more literary. And Catherine snapped it up. And we've been best buds ever since.
Sure have. And she says this was one of the ones that she was working on during lockdown. Must have been extremely quick, because that book was published in September 2021. So
You had a cancellation. You had a writer who wasn't able to make a deadline, and you said, if you can have it ready by such and such a date, I'll give you that slot. And I did, and you did.
and then she's like, well, that opens the floodgates. now I have 6 of her. Sorry, no, this is 2, 4, 6. Remains to be Seen as the 7th title since fall of 2021. So this woman is busy as a beaver. And I mean, she was talking earlier about all the other trunk stories and, sketches and outlines and stuff that she has going. So yes, if you enjoy the writing in this book, there's going to be plenty more to come in all different genres or mixes of genres.
Yeah, because the Nash Jarrell books are urban fantasy
/ sci-fi.
/ sci-fi. This is paranormal mystery, and the Strigoi deception and that entire story arc is science fiction. It's space opera, but it's mainly political intrigue at this point.
Mhm.
This all takes place on a planet, so it's not out in space.
And I'm pretty sure we met once at Astra before, well before the pandemic. Pretty sure. I mean, that could be up to 15 years ago at this point, but
Yeah.
Ad Astra was unfortunately no longer running, but a science fiction literary convention in Toronto that would happen every year, and it was fairly small, like less than 1,000 guests. Take place over 3 days, Friday to Sunday, varied on times of year, but I first went to Ad Astra in, it must have been 2012, I think.
My first time was 2006, so it's entirely possible that we met.
Mm-hmm. It was a great little convention. They actually get some pretty big name authors there as guests, and that was kind of my stepping stone into the wider science fiction fantasy world. I basically was convinced by an intern that I had at the time to apply for panels, and the very first time that I ever did any panels at a convention was at Ad Astra, and my first 2 panels ever in my life were with the guest of honor Jim Butcher, author of the extremely popular Dresden Files novels, which also had an HBO series. So, like, top of the top in fantasy, and they threw me on panels with him for some reason. So,
Yeah, and the one that should be coming out sometime next year, which we haven't yet settled on a name for, but at the moment it's called The Many-Storied Man, is another mashup. Again, it's a murder mystery. It's part cozy and part police procedural, and the cozy part takes place inside the unconscious mind of a man who's in a coma, and this man has dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality, and the point of view character in that part of the book discovers that he is one of the personalities. There's been an attempt on the life of the person, and they have to figure out which one of them was the target.
Don't give it away.
No more, I won't say any more about it. But, no, that one is somewhere on the schedule.
yes, it'll be 2026. That's as specific as I can get at this point.
And that's another genre altogether, that's,
She just can't stay in one. She's always going all over the place.
I guess I'm like Lillian, I like to branch out and explore and do different things. Lillian, at various points in her life, was a bookkeeper. She was a stay-at-home mom. She became an artist. Her paintings hang on people's walls.
Sorry.
No worries.
And a stand-up comedian. She did stand-up comedy. So she has worn many hats.
So,
Can I
How-
interrupt, because we kind of came to buy a book. And,
I think we can have a book buying break.
Yeah, let's have a book buying break,
Have-
and
We're on our way somewhere else, but thank you so much for reading, and always enjoy listening to all the amazing characters of
thank
your
you.
brilliant thinking that way, so.
All right, let's take a book buying break.
And please, again,
And
eat food, drink
yes,
water.
please help yourselves to the snacks, and make sure you get your draw tickets.
And buying books gets you more draw tickets, so you stick around for the
Thank you
next
very
draw, you
much.
have a better
Okay,
chance.
Eva, take care. Bye-bye.
Just 1 second.
Yeah, let me get,
lovely.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, you can leave that back on if you're not gonna use it.
Good, she's coming.
If you're not gonna be here for the draws, you can leave it on, please, like a note or not read it.
He's waiting for the she's the calm, down to earth and common sense. Okay, Clara was a mess.
They're leaving.
Now a matchmaker.
Oh, there must be, I can't wait to read about the two of them.
For the living roof.
Well, that's technically your ticket for showing up, I just gave it to her first.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Would you mind?
Not one bit. Who should I make it up for?
My name is Sonia, S-O-N-I-A.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
And enjoy.
Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'll use it as a tag on that.
I think Lori just had to go do something downstairs, but she should be back eventually.
Is she coming back?
I think Lori's coming back, but I don't know exactly when.
Okay.
Good, good.
Alright, so normally get some healthy food into me this afternoon.
I like that dip.
So we have 8 people in.
So do you work here too?
Yeah.
I'm envious.
It's fun. I'm just part-time, so. That way I have.
This is what happens when you send a husband out to get miniatures.
Ah.
I said, it has to be finger food.
Right.
Mini tarts or mini cinnies or something like that, and
Yes.
cookies, and he came back with turnovers and full-size Danishes.
Right.
I think
You know
that's
what?
just wishful thinking.
I'll bet it was cheaper.
Yes.
Oh, it was. It was, cause he showed me the bill.
He said that the small stuff wasn't worth getting.
Right.
I mean, probably got a point there. But
Am I allowed to buy a book?
absolutely.
You can buy more than one if you want.
I've got all the others. Ta-da! Excellent. Whoa. And that just became a great grandmother. That's what phone messages are.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful.
Congratulations.
It's nighttime for her now, right?
Yes.
More people.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
emailed me a picture of
Yeah.
her granddaughter is 36 and she just had her first child. So she's,
I believe buying 2 books gets you 3 tickets.
Oh, right.
So,
Buying
yes,
2 gets 3 tickets, yes.
35. I'm sorry, you were, sorry, don't cheat yourself.
So I get another.
It's been a while.
You're buying 2 books, you get 3 more tickets.
Oh my gosh.
This is exciting, my chances have gone up.
Noise as you're.
That would not work.
Yeah, one of the prizes is all 3 copies.
Love it.
So
And,
you
and you
can
get
learn-
3 languages.
So you can expand your vocabulary in other
And
languages.
this is, I don't even know.
That's
what
Japanese.
It's Japanese.
Nope.
What is it?
Tickets.
Some kind of sign language? You know what this is?
I think she said it's Romanian,
Oh, that's cool. Good.
but I'm not sure.
and you're getting chocolate, I didn't know you could do that.
It's cute,
Yes,
isn't it?
I cried when I learned stuff. This was such a, and I look on.
Excellent.
Yeah. You should never tell me that, cause you know that can get us in trouble.
Trouble's my middle name.
I love the big garden that person has on their rooftop there.
Yeah.
All different kinds of flowers.
It's a great view from up here. Michael, there's Danish.
There's Danish.
Yeah, there's a lot more people at the brewery now. We had lunch down there.
Oh, I wondered which place, because Arlene had said across the street, and I'm going, okay, that way or that way or.
There's a lot of, across the street, especially when
There
you
is
can,
right here.
when you can exit on either side.
Yeah.
It's fun to get a different perspective, isn't it?
It
From the
is.
third floor?
My girlfriend has been in hospital for a long time, she's home now, but she was in there for about 3 months. We're looking at Aurelia from the 5th floor of the hospital. Everything looks different, your perspective is different, everything, and it's like trying to figure, what is that building over there? Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, we have a friend who has a serial killer brother from a number of times, and it's really wild because unlike plane, where it's not like this, you don't straight up, but you kind of glide up, and in a way, it really, you don't feel like you're rising, it's like the earth is just expanding below you and getting smaller, you know, it's so interesting. It really is, it really is.
Whoa.
Just so you're ready for that.
So you don't get your hands sticky.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had lunch at White Fellows?
They did.
Oh, they did, yeah. Yeah, we love it, we've been there several times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
food?
yeah, very good food.
Ooh.
And excellent beer.
Ah, and it's on the outside?
Yeah, it is a brewery and they have,
They have amber here?
yeah, they have a whole range because they have, seasonal beers. And then they have some of their old standards. So, you know, in the fall, they'll do more like a harvest kind of blend. Right now they're doing lighter wheat beers, that are very milky and light and fizzy, delicious. But they also, it's called a flight. So you get 4 small, and then and that's fun. What's your name, by the way? If we're gonna be talking.
Betty Walker.
Betty,
Betty.
nice to meet
And
you.
you?
Day.
Day?
Like my name, Day Merrill. And my
How do you
husband,
spell
Mike.
day?
D-A-Y. Couldn't be easier.
You were born during the day, I take it?
I was not, but it was my,
Middle of the night?
it was my grandmother's maiden name. So, family name.
Perfect.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Shall we have the draw? And you know what, I think we will deviate from, the first draw that we did.
Put it on a table over here where people can see.
And I'm gonna let the winner choose whichever prize they want from the 3 that are on the table over there, okay?
I'm just reading the numbers, I'm lining them up. This is serious business.
We have
Alright, I removed the tickets for the people who left. So, other tickets should be valid.
God, you got a lot of choices there.
I do.
Ticket 15.
Yes!
You said you wanted 6, right?
Thank you.
Alright. We have the box
for you?
It is the large one.
It's a nightlight, we can put it in the, like in the front hall someplace, cause I'll go with the blue and white china.
Yep.
Just don't put any hot water in it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's important to
No,
get
no problem.
It would just wash off the back.
You can, but you can only do it once,
Yes.
Have this extraordinarily seriously.
at that location.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Can't
I
write.
think
You're
the
the
back
physicist,
front.
you take pictures.
Looking at the,
I think it goes the other way around. Take a
Yeah.
look at the room.
I think it goes like this.
Uh-huh.
Because like otherwise I can only see it through the Twitch.
there,
Which is currently on, nobody is.
Okay. Oh, I see. And that's it? Just one winner? Just one winner, okay.
Well, for this draw.
One winner for this draw.
Yes.
And then
There are more draws, your
there are
tickets
more
are still
draws.
valid.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. At the launch for the Strigoi Deception, one of the draw prizes was the privilege of naming one of the characters in my next book. The winner of that prize was my fellow Brainlag author, J.D. DeLuzio, and I am pleased that he will be reading the third and final passage from Remains to be Seen, a scene involving his named character. The character in question is the president of the Groverton Municipal Cemetery. And if you listen closely, you'll learn why Lillian is so angry. Over to you, JD.
And we're just gonna
Okay,
move.
just one moment.
For those of you on the Twitch, I couldn't get the projection working, so we've just, got him on the laptop screen. Take it away, JD.
Terry will require a reason for the exhumation, of course. Absent a formal request from a living relative of the deceased, we need official proof that the wrong person is in the grave before it can be opened. The president of the Groverton Municipal Cemetery had a condescending voice that seemed to originate from somewhere up his nose. As they spoke on the phone, Kurt's mind flashed the image of a face with beady eyes, pursed lips, and a curly powdered wig. He couldn't help himself. Will a notarized copy of a letter from the grave's current occupant do? Is this some kind of prank, Mr. Wakefield? Oh, no, sir, I'm deathly serious. The letter in question is an authenticated historical document. It describes the death of Gertrude McFadden in her home nearly a month before the train derailment, as well as the subsequent travel plans of her husband, Hugh, accompanied by Gertrude's cousins, Lillian and Friendly. Lillian was misidentified as Gertrude, and her body was therefore mistakenly interred beside Hugh's. I see. And would you happen to know the whereabouts of the late Mrs. McFadden's remains? If the cemetery is going to reopen the grave to remove Miss Friendly, it would just be more efficient to replace her with the rightful occupant at the same time. This is something we would be happy to arrange for you for a reasonable fee. Right. Anything is possible for a fee. Kurt consciously relaxed his jaw muscles. We're still in the process of locating them. Meanwhile, what I need from you is an estimate of the cost for all the work. Reopening 2 graves, opening a third one, relocating the remains of both women, and closing everything up again. Very well. And whom shall we assume will be footing the bill for this? Whoever you're willing to give the best deal to, you self-important son of... None of us are made of money, you know. Fortunately, he chose not to say that aloud. Realizing that his jaw was clenched tight again, he opened and reclosed it before replying. We're also trying to track down surviving family members. For now, however, let's say it will be the Groverton Historical Society. Of course, with remains that old, I should have expected it. Give me an hour or so to pull a quote together and get back to you. Sure, Kurt thought darkly. An hour was plenty of time to inflate a list of dollar figures. Everyone imagined an organization like the Historical Society must have deep pockets, when in fact the Society and the Museum shared a government grant with more than 150 other communities in the province. Okay.
Thank you, JD. Did you enjoy your namesake?
Well, it not made my namesake such a complete pompous ass. But honestly, when I get into research, I can become really pedantic sounding. So
I'm sure everyone can if they dig deep down.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining
I
us.
look forward to reading the book.
You're going to get a copy of it, okay? That's part of the deal,
He gave a thumbs up.
Excellent.
okay?
Excellent.
So,
And I brought the mystery machine, so in honor of your Scooby Gang.
Very nice. And as we both said, JD is also a Brain Lag author, so if you go to brain-lag.com, you can check out his books as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us from London, since,
No problem.
yeah, unfortunately weren't able to make it in person, but that was a great reading.
well done, sir.
Thank you.
Well done. Yay.
All right, I'll free up your internet connection, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
You as well.
Okay. All right, we have 2 more prizes to award.
Yes.
Indeed. And I just want to say a few things about one of these. Actually, about both of them. I thought of Lillian when I thought of this, because this was the 1930s. People used stuff like this.
The perfume?
And
Perfume
Oh my
atomizer.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another bad one, I remember that.
And this one is fancy, it has a tassel. So that's one of the prizes, and the final one, these are 35 years old. My very first published novel, No Pain, No Gain.
I like that one.
This was a Harlequin intrigue. And it led to all the others. And then it was translated into Japanese. And finally into Icelandic.
Trying to figure out what the.
Oh, you're kidding.
Where they flipped the cover picture.
Yes, and I have to tell you something about the cover picture, because I was so upset about this. The main character is a brunette. She's of Italian descent. And for some reason, the artist had Meryl Streep on the brain and picked a blonde to put on the cover. And I tried to complain, and I was told, too late, it's already a bestseller. A bestseller in Canada is what, 5,000 copies sold. And this one, because of the way Harlequin did business, they did it by subscription. It was like having a magazine, and you subscribe to a particular imprint, and every month you get 4 books delivered to your door in that particular line. So this was one of
I thought you said 35 years ago. Oh, wait. That was 35. So,
What do you mean? 1980 was 20 years ago. That doesn't make sense.
I have a hard time.
COVID has made all
Yeah.
kinds of
Sure.
timings
So,
screw up.
The
My daughter-
missing years.
my daughter was a model, and she did a lot of, commercial, she wasn't tall enough for runway, she did a lot of commercial work. And one of the things she did was she did a cover for a Harlequin novel, which eventually we used photographs. When I moved to Collingwood, I joined the Northwoods gym, and I was telling my daughter that I was working on, and I really, really liked my trainer, this nice guy named, Eric Travis. She said, Eric Travis? He was the guy that she was on the cover with. So, talk about knitting things together in a small world.
Oh, yes,
So-
for the longest time, they used someone named Fabio.
Uh-huh. And, yeah, with the long hair, yeah,
It was the hair,
yeah.
that must have been the hair.
That's great.
And then he got hit in the face by a goose while on a roller coaster.
Is that true? I didn't
That's
know.
true, and he actually lobbied for better safety measures on roller coasters as a result of that.
I can imagine. His face was it. Remember Fabio?
I actually watched a YouTube video about that incident. A couple of guys, it's a group called the Slow-Mo Guys.
Yep.
And they just film random things in slow motion. They've done collaborations with a number of other YouTube channels, but one of their videos in the last year or so was a rubber goose hitting a model of Fabio in the face that they filmed in slow motion. And
With
it was
Adam Savage from Mythbusters.
yes, and it was kind of horrifying to watch it in slow motion.
Okay, so shall we draw?
There are 2 prizes and 7 tickets. Unless someone wants to buy books and get more tickets.
It's your last chance.
I love that.
I could see his face.
11.
That's me.
Yay!
So do you want the atomizer or 3 different languages of the same book?
You could put Old
I'll
Spice
defer.
in the atomizer.
Ooh.
Love Old Spice.
Which one speaks to
I'll
you?
put something in it that will.
This is a good way to learn languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could put like bug repellent in it.
Oh, there you go.
Or you could even just put water in it and use it to keep the cats off the counter.
Okay.
This is great.
Leave it with 2 books and 2 boxes.
Treasure.
Play literary games, win literary prizes. I mean, this is.
Throw a Gatsby party, you will get the prize, girl.
As you rob it.
Goodwill, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's fun.
I love the colors on it.
Yeah, the patterns are great.
It's very striking.
It's elegant,
Yeah,
it's
It's
very,
very-
like Art Deco, yeah.
very
You
nineteen
need
thirties.
proof here.
Yes.
Well, I think
Trust
you should
nobody.
get the last one, because you haven't got one yet. So,
Oh, did you win? Did you win?
yeah, I got Mutando. So I think she should get that one, so whatever her number is, she's gonna win it.
She has 2 tickets.
Hmm?
She has 2 tickets. I know what one of them is.
Okay, good, okay, call it.
I could
That's only
rate them
fair.
and put these in the library.
Yes, that's right, I'll have to share them.
It's a good story, it's really a good story.
She's the only person here who hasn't won. Should I
Yeah,
give
so
it to
we
her?
want her to win,
Yeah,
is that
Yes,
okay?
please. Yeah.
Can we vote for
So
that?
unanimous
Yay!
4.
Everybody wins a prize.
Well, she only gets 3 books.
Quick, scrounge up another.
Okay.
Put it in a different language. Interesting Icelandic.
Yes.
Yeah. Very interesting choice.
Every time I go secondhand shopping, I look in the Harlequin romance section to see if there are copies of that book. There never are. I've seen hundreds of different titles there, never that one. No one gives it up.
I still have mine.
I have a
On my
copy of
shelf.
it, I have not read that copy. But I have it.
Yeah.
But do you have it in Japanese? Gonna have to buy one off your mom now.
I'll have to buy it off the library at this point.
Yes.
It's the only known copy. Can't work on a raffle, so I can toss these now. Ha-ha.
Oh, that's the garbage. Okay.
Yeah, recycle their garbage on this side.
Now, one of the things that I did describe accurately, because I have a photo of the boarding platform of the replica at the museum. And so, I decided I was gonna describe that as accurately as possible. A series of strong wooden buttresses hugged the wall of the erstwhile station, curving gracefully outward to support the shelf of roof that overhung the platform, and affording anyone waiting to travel a panoramic view of the surrounding countryside. Then he looked up, and for the first time he noticed the resemblance between the roof supports and the ribs of a ship's keel, turned upside down. Very apt, he thought, for a town that had depended for so long on the steady traffic of large cargo vessels. And that's an accurate description. If you go to the museum, that's what you'll see.
It's really cool.
These little towns, they've got history. It's fascinating. And it's not just ghosts, it's, you know, it's people, it's events, it's buildings. Most of the information that I found out about the railways and the railway station came from the Collingwood Historical Society webpage. Let me just find it here.
So is that how you found out a lot of the little tidbits, like in that reading about how the Groverton Historical Society had to share its funding with like 150 other municipalities?
Yeah. This was my best and most authentic source of information. Because I went to different websites and there are various people who have written about, you know, but they've done their research in different documents, if they've done that kind of research at all. In a couple of cases, I wondered whether they had, you know, gone beyond Wikipedia. But the Collingwood Historical Society.com, so Collingwood Historical Society, all one word, .com, and then it's /stories, and then /F/Pioneer Structures of Huron Street. And that's where I found out that the first European settlers came to this area in 1835. And freed black slaves arrived in the 1840s, bringing their culture and religion with them, which explains Rafferty House being, you know, having a voodoo curse on it. That the railroad was originally called Ontario, Simcoe and Huron Railroad, and later renamed as the Northern Railroad, but it was named after the lakes that surrounded it. And the Collingwood shipyards opened for business on May 24th, 1883, and until the Seaway opened, the St. Lawrence Seaway opened, they were the shipbuilding center for the Upper Great Lakes. Business declined after that, and they finally had to close in 1986. And all of that I found out in this one story, Pioneer Structures of Huron Street. But there are other stories, there are, you know, of individuals, of people who lived in that time. Someone has done deep dives, they've gone to original documents, and they've put together these wonderful stories that you can trust are factually correct and authentic.
So much better.
We had a house on Birch Street, and, there was a piece in the backyard that we just couldn't get anything to grow on. And we did some digging and found out that that had been the shop of somebody who had ended up, as a metal worker for the shipyards. But originally, his job had been guiding the little dray horses that were pulling like the cars along. So it was really neat to feel like connected to history, and that was his shop, and it was just, there was so much metal filings, and we'd find pieces of crockery and all kinds of stuff in there. Nothing, well, like they dredged the harbor because it was so toxic and built the berm out of that. So this was kind of like a mini version of some grass which has never grown there.
Wow.
So it was really neat to do that
That's
research
cool.
and find the history. We have a pretty clear record of the people who lived in it over the years, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a picture of the place from somebody
The people that we bought it from,
from
who
had
they
it.
bought it from,
Right,
so.
it was, it's interesting to see what things looked like in 1890 something, right? One of the interesting things I ran into was a replica map, which was put together as a kind of poster picture on the wall of an Airbnb, and do you remember where it was? It was in Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia. And 1859, 1869, it was pre-Civil War, 1859. And if you're saying the town was founded in 1835, this map
And there's a map of the US.
It was a map of the US primarily, but it had Canada stretching out above it, and it had Collingwood on that map. So Collingwood was extraordinarily important to people making maps in the 1850s. It was,
They had
stunning,
Toronto,
really.
the only things in Ontario was Toronto and Collingwood.
Well, because of the large shipyard, probably, right?
Well,
Well, the
shipyard was
shipyards,
later, but the
grain,
fact that it was,
The grain shipping that occurred, the
I think it
railroad,
was just the harbor
and
and the
the-
railroad.
and then, well, it shipped across the Great Lakes. They would, bring it in from the prairie, ship it across the Great Lakes to Collingwood, and then all what's now train trails were train lines that would take it
Yeah.
off from there, so.
It went to Chicago, I know that was one of
Yes.
the
Yeah,
places that, the grain went to. There was, but when the Seaway opened, that was a shortcut.
Yeah.
And people were able to get to those ports without going through the Great Lakes to get there.
And the same thing happened with the shipbuilding. Once they were able to figure out how to build larger boats, those boats were too large to be built
through the Welland
in
Canal.
Collingwood, and they couldn't get them, so, slice of history, important until you're not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's neat to get a story like this one, and then you learn some of your own history,
Yes.
through those stories. I love that idea, yeah. That's cool.
If you wanna hear something funny, on Wikipedia, at the end of their, Collingwood, article, they've got a list of people from Collingwood in various fields, so athletes, Olympic champions, entertainment, and at the end they've got miscellaneous, and at the very bottom of miscellaneous, they've got serial killer. Collingwood has spawned a serial killer.
Well, I mean,
Without a name.
if you
Oh,
read
no,
any,
he had a
Oh,
name.
it had a name.
Gary Grace,
They always have
Gray, I think.
They
Gray,
always have three
something like
serial
that.
killers, always have
Well,
three.
That could be an
It's
interesting
pretty grim.
story.
Find out more about the serial killer from Collingwood.
Yes.
And there's another book.
yep.
Not quite so cozy.
It depends if that character is already a ghost.
Oh, interesting, there you go.
Unable to interact with the material world, but able to occupy the same space as something that's material, and in the process to make it cold, because the touch of a ghost is going to be cold. And that's how I've got them communicating with humans who cannot see or hear them. It's one touch for yes and two touches for no.
I really liked the scene in the book when Kurt, the ghost whisperer, is trying to get the police officers to basically accept a ghost's testimony. The first part being, how do they accept that ghosts are real? And he says, I invite you to take this item that the ghost is tethered to. You can take it anywhere you like to test it out yourself, ask questions of the ghost, and the results.
Yeah, they took it to the police car because they figured that would be clean. They knew that there couldn't be any shenanigans with that. And it's the pendant. Like he sends them out with the pendant to sit in the car and ask questions that only Barbara and the police would have known.
And Kurt's across the parking lot from them. But he's the point of view character. So he doesn't know what happens in that car.
He just knows that they come rushing back inside and say, okay, let's go. We're going to do this. We're going to
Yep. Cool.
I'm going to be bringing these characters back in future books, for sure. We have a population of ghosts at the museum who would love to solve mysteries. And we have the Scooby Gang.
Okay, you have to tell me your inspiration for the Reverend.
The Reverend Upworthy. It's from a song by Tanglefoot. And this is, I guess you call it folkish music. When we had the Celtic Festival, they were frequent guests performing at the Celtic Festival. And their songs are all based on real people and real events in Canada, in Ontario, actually. And there was a song about a trip across a bridge to get beer. The problem was that a zealous man of the cloth had decided that the town should be dry, and therefore he was going to curse every bar, and he cursed the bridge because that was the way people got their liquor into town. So these guys are driving a car along this bridge. They're coming back with their liquor, and a storm blows up and nearly blows their car off the bridge. And I thought, okay, a zealous reverend who wants to purify the town. That was the inspiration for the Reverend Upworthy.
Which ended up a bit more different and rather more raunchy tale in the book. So
Looking forward to this one.
But it's got a nice conclusion.
it does. It was really fun, and I mean, again, you're just so good at bringing characters to life, including ghosts, and that one was very interesting, very memorable.
But the song is called The Floating Bridge of Ennismore.
Yes.
It's nice when you can see the character in your head, right? That you're reading. Yeah.
You'll see a lot of this character in your head. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Read the book.
Yeah. But what you were saying, that song sounds like Aurelia. Because Aurelia was dry in that decade or two, and the only way they could get any alcohol was to go over the Narrows Bridge to Atherley, which was like 10 minutes away.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like we have a connection,
That was probably the inspiration for the song.
And is Tanglefoot a Canadian?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, there were teachers. There are teachers in that group. That they got together and they basically are turning Ontario history into a series of songs.
Ennismore is about 15 kilometers northwest of Peterborough.
Oh, okay.
And I wonder if they met up at all with Gordon Lightfoot,
Could
who
be.
was Aurelian. Just, there's more to learn. Yeah.
We have all of their CDs, and some of their songs just, make me tear up because they're, about a soldier coming home, invalided from World War I, and, talking to his bride, and it just, they just have the knack. They're really, really great. I wish they had put out more music or made more appearances that we could go to and buy their CDs.
And then they have songs like McCurdy's Boy, which is about the second person to fly an airplane.
But
Who happened to be a failed race car driver.
Well, gee, it's a good thing the plane worked.
The only thing he was good at was crashing cars. And then Jack the Green, which is about a brawling Irishman. And there was another one about insurance fraud, using missing body parts. That there was this guy who would, purposely destroy parts of his own body to collect the insurance. And just, just so many.
See, why can't more like pop songs be about interesting stuff like that?
Yeah.
Tell random historical stories.
Yeah, there's one that I really like, and it's about this woman now. I looked it up on the map. There's an outcropping into Lake Erie, and there was a building that was tended by a woman who could not swim, but she was very tall, and a ship that ran aground, and she waded out into Lake Erie, and she managed to get all of the men off of that boat before it sank.
That's incredible.
Interesting.
No, but they collected stories. They actually traveled around Ontario, and they collected these stories about interesting people and events and places. And they turned them into songs and performed them, and they were just, terrific. They were wonderful. But that's where the Reverend came from. The one who cursed the bridge.
The Floating Bridge of Ennismore.
So what's up next for you? What are you working on now?
I am currently working on the next book, in the Groverton hauntings. And one of the ghost characters is a retired detective inspector from the, I can't use OPP, they have a policy against that, so I've changed it to PPS, Provincial Police Services. And, Brassard takes center stage on this one. She becomes one of the point of view characters because, he dies apparently by his own hand, but she doesn't believe it because he was her mentor and he wasn't a quitter. And so this is one of the cases that gets investigated in book 3.
A literal cold case. Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, the title that I'm using is The Spirit of the Law.
Nice.
What was book 1 then? This is book 2?
Weekends Can Be Murder.
Weekends Can Be Murder was book 1.
Okay.
It's available for purchase behind you.
Okay.
And
But they're all pretty standalone.
And there's a recap of book 1 in book 2, so you don't have to have read book 1 in order to
Enjoy.
enjoy. And then I've got another one in mind that I'm calling Team Spirit, where the ghosts are going to investigate without the living sleuths. I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. They haven't told me yet, but it's in the works. There's a short novel that I have submitted to Catherine. She hasn't had a chance to read it yet, but it's called Timepieces, and it's a slipstream. Slipstream is fiction that raises questions and forces the reader to think, and does not answer those questions at the end. It leaves questions in the reader's mind. And this one, it's a shorty, it's about 51,000 words. And it's about a woman who is forced to remember living alternate versions of her life because a time traveler went into her past and made a mistake and is now trying to make things right and not doing a very good job of it.
So she keeps getting
adjusted. Her life keeps getting adjusted. And so what I'm providing is glimpses of what her present looks like after all those adjustments have happened. They've trickled down through the timeline, and now, there are certain people in her life, and they're either alive or they're dead. It's sort of like Schrodinger's cat. In one version they may be alive, another version they may be dead, another version they may be married to her, and so it's a whole series, and it's tied together with something that happened when she was 12 years old. So interspersed with segments of this thing that happened when she was 12, different versions of the way her life is and how she is and why. So it's kind of an in-depth study of family relationships and what happens in the wake of tragedy, and what the changes that occur, how one small change in the past can create such a vast difference in your present. Anyway, it's a shorty. It's about half the length of the books I normally write. But it still passes your threshold. It's 51,000 words.
And so what question were you looking to leave people with then?
Well, I just want people to consider how a small change that you make in someone's life. You know, like you may think that you're not making much of a change in someone's life, and yet you've sent them on a totally different path.
Right.
You know, and we need to be more mindful about the things that we say to people and the things that we do, because we do have an effect, we do have an impact on the people around us.
I saw a quote on Facebook recently along similar lines, which is, everyone is afraid of making a small change if they travel back in time because it could significantly alter the future. But no one ever thinks they can make a small change now to significantly alter the future.
I was just thinking about that as Arlene was describing the book, because, yeah, very much so.
And see, just describing the book, you haven't even read it, and you're already thinking about it.
questions.
So,
One of
that's what
these-
slipstream is.
Yeah. And that they be positive changes to a person.
But who knows what positive looks like, right? I mean, it could appear to be, oh, I've done this positive thing for them, but that would mean that that sets them on a path that sets them up for something else, which turns out not to be. I mean,
I'm just thinking there was a lifeguard at our pool who, and I went up to her one morning and I said, I just want to thank you so much. Your smile not only makes my day, but it makes me feel so much better. She hasn't stopped smiling in the last 3 years.
nice.
Just something like that, like just a positive thing, and not that you're doing it for that person, but in a way you are, but yes. And now, yeah. So,
Well, it makes me think of this Nelson Mandela effect.
oh,
They've got people out there that think he died in prison, or I forget exactly what the shift is, but it's almost like they live different lives in history, because and it's fairly clear in their memories, there's these shifts that other people, clearly he's first black premier after getting out of prison, blah, 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 we
Yeah.
live in a different history, but these people describe another one, so it became a meme, I guess, a Mandela effect of, do you remember a different past than other people remember?
And maybe a time traveler botched up your past somehow and is,
You're now in another one, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a group, I mean, it's a large group of people, so.
Well, that's like that show that I haven't seen, Man in the High Castle, which is
You're right, Japan
speculative
and-
fiction,
and
like what if Japan and Germany had won the Second
World War
World
II.
War? You know, and it's a view of the present from that change in the past, and how, what that would have looked like to play out, so.
There's a Philip K. Dick novel, so,
Oh, there you are.
science fiction.
See,
That's
Altern-
alternate history. The Mandela effect is more just a bunch of people remember something that happens to be wrong. Like in the Berenstain Bears, it is spelled Berenstain, not Berenstein. But most people believe it was spelled Berenstein. A lot of people believe there was a movie called Shazam starring Sinbad, the comedian, which never existed.
And of course, that's even easier to convince people of on the internet these days.
Yeah, you can actually buy a fake VHS that has that poster everyone knows, and there's a bunch of Mandela effect references in the credits on the lower portion of the back of the box.
I'm gonna present this to the library. Okay?
And for those of you tuning in online on the Twitch stream, my video battery is running out, so I'm going to end the stream. But thank you to everyone who came out to join, and the VOD, the video on demand, will be going up on YouTube shortly, and again, you can go to brain-lag.com to take a look at the book, which will officially be out next Friday. Thanks for coming, and I hope you have a great weekend.